Is Shedeur Sanders trying to control where he goes in the upcoming NFL draft? One insider thinks so.
You are Locked On Buffs, your daily podcast on the Colorado Buffaloes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Buffs. I'm your host, Kevin Borba. Today's episode is brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day for free and available as we adjust the computer on the desk here. It's free and available wherever you get your podcast. Thank you guys for making me your first listen. We got a really fun episode, fun topic to talk about because it's NFL Combine season, which means it's NFL Draft Rumor seasons, which means it's NFL Mock Draft season. Everything to do with the NFL Draft is happening now. And I love NFL Mock Draft and NFL Draft season because it's the one intersection between college football, the NFL that the sports really need, right? I think oftentimes it's like I like college football or I like the NFL. So this is the one time where it feels like everyone comes together for a few months, a couple months, and we all enjoy the same things. And right now, Shedeur Sanders is making headlines. And if you're surprised, I don't know what to tell you, but what he's making the headlines about may actually be worth being surprised about. So today, because the quarterbacks throw tomorrow, so basically how the combine works is you interview the day before you participate in drills if you're going to participate in drills. So Shedeur Sanders was talking today to the media, and he talked about what teams will get in him, which I'll talk about a little bit later. And he talked about why he's not going to the draft, but there was a report from CBS's Jonathan Jones, their NFL draft insider, that Shedeur isn't really giving it his all in certain interviews. And this is what he had to say. Quote, they've been interviewing with teams. This is about Shedeur and Cam Ward because the topic that they were discussing on the show was Cam Ward and Shedeur's QB1, QB2, whatever. And they were talking about how they're doing in the interviews. And so this is him talking about Ward and Shedeur, but mostly Shedeur. Said they've been interviewing with teams. Cam Ward, I can confidently say, from teams that I have spoken to has been interviewing better than Shedeur Sanders. I talked to one team who agreed with that, but said, look, Shedeur is not really, it does not appear that he's giving it his all with teams he doesn't want to go to. So what did this make me think of? Well, one, dating back in March when his father / coach / NFL legend Coach Prime went on $1 million worth of game podcasts, he said they pull an Eli Manning if needed to ensure that his son goes to the right team. And this was his quote. I know where I want them to go. So it's certain cities that ain't going to happen. It's going to be in Eli. Realistically, if you don't remember what happened with Eli Manning, the Chargers had the number one pick, San Diego Chargers at the time. Shout out San Diego. They had the number one pick at the time. And for whatever reason, him, possibly his father, Archie, it's never been confirmed. Hint, hint, wink, wink. Did not want him, Eli, to go to the Chargers number one, right? There was some sort of, they didn't really give a reasoning, right? Maybe it was how they developed quarterbacks. Maybe I believe it's how they treated Drew Brees was the thing. It was all rumors all over the place, right? I don't actually know the true story because I don't think anyone knows the true story outside of the Manning family. And so the Chargers drafted Manning, and at the time he was like, if you draft me, I'll sit out my rookie year. He's like, I'll go to law school. Like he was threatening everything, and they drafted him anyway, probably thinking, hey, once we draft him, he can't do anything about it. And then he literally was like, I don't want to play for you. And so they ended up trading him to the New York Giants, who at number 4 took Phillip Rivers. It was like a little NFL draft day swap, which I don't know the last time that's happened outside of that. I don't know of any other times where a team has drafted a player in the NFL and then traded him to another team who drafted another player, right? So I feel like it worked out pretty well for Eli and Phillip. That being said, is Shedeur going to try to do the same thing? And then another example, right? So he pulled an Eli, whatever, or they might pull an Eli. Deion Sanders during the 1989 pre-draft process, because if you guys don't remember, Deion Sanders was drafted 1989. I believe he was pick 7, I think, pick 5. Let me confirm, because he went pretty early in that draft as well. Pick 5 to the Atlanta Falcons. And there was a time when he was interviewing with the New York Giants, who at the time during the draft had the 18th pick. And so he goes in to interview with the Giants, and they were going to give him the Wonderlic test. And so this is what Deion Sanders had to say about that back in 2017. He said, they sat me down and gave me a thick book. I mean, this thing was thicker than a phone book, he said. Or this is Coach Prime speaking. I said, "What's this?" They said, "This is our test that we give all the players." And then he said, I said, "Excuse me, what pick do you have in the draft?" They said, "I think 10th, actually 18th. I said, I'll be gone before then. I'll see you later. I ain't got time for this. That's a true story." And then he walked out of the interview. And so I don't think Shedor's gone to that extreme of a measure, because I do think in a way he has to. I think times are a little different now. Obviously, Coach Prime was a little bit more of a wild card back in the day than Shedeur is. And even then, I feel like people see Shedeur as like this menace to society. And I don't know if they remember Coach Prime, like walking out of an interview being like, "No, you're not. I'm not going to be there. See ya," is crazy. So is Shedeur purposely tanking his stock? No, I don't think he's purposely tanking his stock. That being said, I think the groundwork was always laid for this to happen, right? I think there's always been certain teams that Shedeur Sanders, Deion Sanders have wanted him to go to, right? They said no cold weather teams. And then you look at who has the first few picks, and it's like Tennessee, which, I mean, decent weather. I've been to Nashville. I like it there. It gets cold, though. Cleveland has freezing weather. The Giants have freezing weather. The Jets have freezing weather. The Raiders have perfect weather. It's in Vegas, right? It just gets hot. And so one of the things that stands out to me about this top 5 is, or even the top, we'll go top 10. The Titans don't have the best history of developing quarterbacks. The Browns have a horrible history of developing quarterbacks. And if I had to guess, this isn't me saying I've been told anything. This is pure speculation. I think the Browns would be a good fit for Shedeur. That being said, I wouldn't be shocked if the Sanders family was like, "We don't want him to go to Cleveland because they never develop quarterbacks," right? So either way wouldn't shock me. I think there's a lot that's going on there. But it is interesting to see that there's a little bit of a kermuppets at the NFL Combine with Shedeur, because I think teams, I don't know. I think people were of the mindset that he'd just be happy to go wherever. And I don't think teams expected him to sort of use his brand, his name, his whatever to force his way to certain teams. And I don't know if it's going to work. But hey, it's worth a shot, especially now that Matthew Stafford is back at the Lions. Or back with the Rams. That would have been crazy, which means the Raiders are in the market for a quarterback. And although they may get a guy like Justin Fields or Russell Wilson, they could end up getting a guy like Shedeur Sanders in the draft if they want to. So I think it's interesting that Shedeur Sanders is sort of trying this, because I don't know where he wants to go. The teams that I really see being good fits for him, Cleveland, which I already mentioned, the Giants, but they're pursuing Aaron Rodgers reportedly, the Raiders, the Jets, and the Saints. All those teams are in the top 10. And then after that, it's a little quarterback confusing, right? I think the next best team, or the next best option, would be the Colts. They have Anthony Richardson, who they kind of want to work, I think. And then maybe the Cardinals, but I don't know if they're ready to move on from Kyler. Seattle 18. So I don't know, right? It's really confusing overall, but I do think it's interesting that we're seeing sort of a father-like son moment where Shedeur's like, yeah, I'm going to do my best to get where I want to. And you can't fault the guy, right? I mean, I wouldn't want to go to Cleveland. I don't know if it is Cleveland, but I wouldn't want to go to some of these teams if I had the option. And clearly he's trying to exercise the little power that he has as a possible drafted player. So thought that was really interesting. If you had to guess, comment below, if you had to guess, which team do you think Shedeur Sanders interviewed with and was like, I'm not gonna try this. Comment below what you think. I just want to see something. When we come back, we're gonna be talking about the rest of his comments and why I thought they were so interesting, and why I think for the most part he won the day in a way, if that makes sense. This episode of Locked on Buffs is brought to you by Fabric by Gerber Life. Life moves fast, especially when you have a family. One day, you're watching your kids take their first steps, and before you know it, they're off to college. That's why securing their future is so important. Fabric by Gerber Life makes it simple to get lifetime insurance that fits your family needs. With Fabric, you can apply for term life insurance online right from your couch. You could be covered in under 10 minutes. In many cases, no health exam is required. They have affordable coverage. You could get $1 million in coverage for less than $1 a day, so protecting your loved one doesn't have to break the bank. Join the thousands of parents who trust Fabric to help their families. Apply today in just minutes at fabric.com/lockedoncollege. It's meetfabric.com/lockedoncollege. It's meetfabric.com/lockedoncollege. It's MEET fabric FABRIC.com/lockedoncollege. Policies issued by Western Southern Life Assurance Company, not available in certain states. Prices subject to underwriting and health questions. Welcome back to Locked On Buffs. Appreciate you guys for tuning in every single day, making me your first listen of the day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast. Make sure to like, subscribe, and follow so that way you don't miss out on a moment of the coverage. Let's talk about what Shedeur said at the Combine today, because I loved it personally. Outside of the reports we're hearing now, and even then, I don't mind it, right? If you could control a way to make sure your career goes well, I would do anything to make sure my career goes well, right? I mean, anything within reason. And so him doing whatever he's possibly doing with allegedly doing with these NFL draft teams or NFL teams, I'm not mad at it, because if he goes to the Browns and say the Browns suck and they ruin another quarterback, then his career's over, right? We've seen guys go to the Browns who are supposed to be really good and then they fizzle and then their careers are over. Johnny Manziel obviously had a lot of problems. Deshaun Kaiser, Deshaun Watson, you name it, right? A lot of guys. Have not worked out for the Browns. Brady Quinn, whoever it is. So today he was asked by a good friend of the show, why should NFL teams, what should they expect from him, right? Because the question was posed as, you change the culture at Colorado and Jackson State, and now you have a chance to do it again. And he says, that's the plan, talking about changing the culture. If that's not what you're trying to do, don't get me. If you ain't trying to change the franchise or the culture, don't get me. So you should know, history repeats itself over and over, and I've done it over and over and over. So there should be no question why NFL franchise should pick me. And I don't hate that answer, right? I think the thing that NFL franchises should know about Shedeur Sanders, because I will say this, he doesn't come off as the same sort of like prospect where it's like, I just want to go to the right team and help. Like, he's confident, right? He's using what he's done in his past at Colorado, at Jackson State, where at Jackson State, he led them to multiple double-digit win seasons. At Colorado, led them to their first 9-win season since 2016, their first college football playoff ranking ever, had the 6th best completion percentage in college football history. He's accomplished a lot, right? He made the jump from FCS to FBS, played at the highest level, the Power 4, and did quite well for himself. And I think we're so used to quarterbacks like putting on this like interview process like mask where it's just like, yes, I am a robot. Like, you remember that episode of SpongeBob back in the day? I'm going to age myself a little bit, probably younger than most of you would like, but there's an episode of SpongeBob, and he sort of like erases all of his flaws, or his sponge holes, I guess, and erases his flaws and becomes boring, becomes normal. Like, I think that's what the NFL draft process does to a lot of these guys, where it's like they become super formal, they become super normal because they're all trying to say the perfect and right thing. And Shedeur Sanders, for better or for worse, is being unapologetically himself. And I love the approach, because at the end of the day, teams know he's confident, right? We've seen, and I think that's the crazy part about some of these guys, is like, we've seen you throw the double bird at the stands, or we've seen you taunt the officials or the teams with the little groin grab, shout out Baker Mayfield, or planting the flag. And then all of a sudden you get in front of the media, NFL Combine, and you're like, yeah, I just really had a lot of fun during my career and blah, blah, blah. Like, we know who you are. We could judge or base who you are based off how you've been the past 3 to 4 years. And so Shedeur Sanders is unapologetically being himself. And while it's probably not for everyone, I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I don't think every team loves it, because there's some traditionalist guys who are like, he should be respecting the moment. He should be doing that. I love it, right? I think Shedeur Sanders is doing exactly what he needs to do for him. And that's be himself. And that's boost his draft stock the way he knows what to do or how to do, which is be himself, right? And at the end of the day, his play backs up everything he's saying and or doing, right? It's not like he was terrible at Jackson State and Colorado and all of a sudden it's like, yeah, I'm a program changer. Like, I don't want to throw Graham Mertz under the bus, but I'm going to throw Graham Mertz under the bus a little bit. Graham Mertz wasn't, as a recruit, we'll just put it this way, he was supposed to be a Wisconsin legend. He was like the highest ranked recruit in program history. They thought they had the next great one. And Graham Mertz ended up being a very average to above average college quarterback. And if Graham Mertz were to go into the Combine being like, yeah, I changed the trajectory of 2 programs, like Wisconsin, who has had success before with Russell Wilson, Alex Hornibrook, and then Florida, obviously Tim Tebow and Kyle Trask and other guys, and obviously Tim Tebow's a legend, right? If he was like, yeah, I changed the culture at Florida, everyone would be like, you did? You? Graham Mertz? No, that did not happen, right? But it's Shedeur Sanders, right? He changed the culture at Jackson State. He helped, I think, put them on the map for the average college football fan. And let me say that again, the average college football fan. right? I don't think a lot of fans were totally tuned into Jackson State football before Deion Sanders was there. Same thing with Colorado, honestly. I think he put Colorado on the map in the sense that people knew of Colorado, right? They knew it was a Pac-12 program. Now it's a Big 12 program. But that was about it, right? They didn't know much about them. They didn't care about them. And he changes the trajectory of the program because now Colorado is recruiting at an elite level. They are contending for a Big 12 title in the playoff this past season. So he did change the culture at multiple programs. So I love what he had to say. And then I thought this was interesting. We all knew he wasn't going to the NFL draft, which I don't think is. I think it's. I don't know. I don't really know what to make of it. I don't really care. It's his choice. He says because he was asked why he wasn't going. He says because I feel like it makes more sense for me to be at home, be with the family, be with everybody that supported me. Cost wise, it's not going to make sense to fly everybody there, and it's going to be too much of a hassle. So it's best to do it with the people that have been supporting me this whole way and have been by my side. I don't hate that, right? Maybe he wants to be there with his brother, right? I think part of it is like, and this is me speculating, making it like guessing. Maybe if Shedeur Sanders was invited, right, they'd go, right? But I think part of them wants to do it together as a family because obviously Shedeur not going to hear his name called in the first round. And I also think part of them is, the Sanders family is probably going to do something where they get content out of it, right? Maybe Well-Off Media Video is going to do something, or Well-Off Media is going to do something. Maybe the Amazon Prime, like they're going to do something on NFL draft day where it's like it benefits them more than them being at the draft would, right? They're going to have more people able to be there. And we all know that Coach Prime looks out for those who he cares about. So when we come back, we're going to be talking about an NFL versus MLB debate that I think's been sort of emerging and really interesting. You'll have to wait and see. This episode of Locked On Buffs is brought to you by PrizePicks. March basketball is here, and there's no better way to get in on the action than with PrizePicks, the best place for daily fantasy sports. With PrizePicks, you pick more or less on at least 2 player projections, and if you're right, you can win up to 1,000 times your cash. It's fast, it's easy, and keeps every game exciting. They have my favorite part, and honestly, this is my honest to God favorite part, is the fast payouts. Because when I win, my money hits my account in as little as 15 minutes. So there's no waiting around where it's like, are they going to try to jip me somehow? Not with PrizePicks. They give you your money in as little as 15 minutes, which is great. Also, they have Taco Tuesday deals. PrizePicks even offers weekly promos like Taco Tuesday, where you get discounted player projections for even more value. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's Locked On College for $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. Welcome back to Locked On Buffs. Appreciate you guys for tuning in every single day, making me your first listen of the day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast. And like I said, make sure to like, subscribe, and follow so that way you don't miss out of the coverage, because we have some fun. This debate has been an interesting one because I see the correlation. I just think it's really hard to debate. Travis Hunter, and I think he was set up with this question, honestly, not in a bad way. I just think there was no really positive answer. And it's just one of those things where someone blowing on my phone. It's annoying. But I didn't love the question because I feel like it set him up for failure, because either way, it's one of those questions where he says one thing and it's like, oh my gosh, can't believe he said that. And he says another, it's like, wow, he's not confident. So he was asked about him, comparing him to Shohei Ohtani. If you're not familiar with Shohei Ohtani, he's probably the best baseball player ever. He pitches at an elite level, and he also hits at an elite level. Hit 50 plus home runs, 50 plus stolen bases this past year. And people are like, you're like Shohei Ohtani for football. What's harder, what he does or what you do? And Travis says what he does. And part of me agrees, part of me disagrees. Now, I think football is more physically demanding. And if Travis Hunter is able to successfully put up numbers like he was in college in the NFL, I think that'd be more impressive. That being said, I don't know if any NFL team is going to allow him to do that, because baseball is more spread out. On the days that Shohei, there's 5 to 6 days between each game he pitches. He gets 4 at-bats a game. He doesn't play defense, so he's not really playing all the time. And one of those things is, or I think that's where sort of I draw the line, right? Travis wants to play every snap. Shohei's not involved in every play. So I think more physically demanding, I'd give the edge to Travis if he's able to do it the same he was in college, right? If they go, hey, you get 10 plays here, 10 plays there, got to give it to Shohei. in terms of the harder sport, right? This is always the debate. I've had football players. AJ Brown was a MLB prospect. He says it's harder. Travis Kelce. A lot of football players say playing baseball is harder. So I do have to give the advantage there to Shohei. In terms of level of dominance, it's hard to tell because we haven't seen Travis play yet. So we'll go 1-1 tie, and then we'll have to determine it as time goes on. So that's my take on the matter. You guys comment below. What's more difficult, Travis or what Shohei does? Let me know what you think. Thank you guys for tuning in. This has been Locked On Buffs.